let's get to the next story. It just so happens to be, well, about Marvel versus Capcom, ladies and gentlemen. Now, look, I'm not going to sit here and lie to you to say that I was upset that this was not coming to Xbox. Not because I don't have the ability to play it, because I'm not buying it on a PS5 because I don't really enjoy my time outside of first party stuff on the PS5. But I'm buying it for the Switch. I have a 6-button controller that I bought. It's wired because obviously you don't want any latency. I'm going to play it there. I own Marvel vs. Capcom 1, 2, and 3. I own them on the Dreamcast. I own Marvel vs. Capcom on the OG Xbox. I have them. I actually own them. I have consoles that if I wanted to play them, I can hook them up to the TV. It's 2024, ladies and gentlemen. We shouldn't have to. So I gave Microsoft and Capcom, for that matter, the smoke that they deserve, because I think that if there's one thing that you can put your thumb on when it comes to Xbox, specifically Phil Spencer, and I'm looking at you, Phil, right now, he's always talked up a big game about preserving the ability to play games even when they're old. Right? That should be paramount for any console. It has been in a great way for Xbox, Fuzzy. But when it comes to games like this, they always see. I mean, look, Arc System Works have a bunch of games that skipped Xbox. They're released for everyone but Xbox. SNK is another one. A lot of these older games that maybe don't mean a lot to a whole mess of people, but they mean something to me. Those have skipped Xbox on everything except Xbox. And even like Clobreel, shout out to Clobreel, who actually, he was pretty pointed with Xbox. He's like, yeah, exclusively, not on Xbox. And he's not wrong for that statement. Well, the tide might be turning, ladies and gentlemen, because again, thanks to Jez Corden of Windows Central, who has been a busy bee. Well, during the Xbox 2 podcast, and a shout out to Hazador Gaming, who, of course, I'm using his specific tweet here. He goes on to say, rumor, Windows Central Jez Corden says that he has heard that Microsoft is currently looking for a solution to bring the Capcom titles that were announced to Xbox. Marvel vs. Capcom and Great Ace Attorney Chronicles did not come to Xbox due to an engine problem. Now, here I have a response from Jez Corden to this tweet, and he goes, it's not so much an issue with the engine, but it's the dev pipeline or development pipeline. They don't have a team for it right now on Xbox. I keep seeing people say, but back compat, but there's work being done on these titles too. They're not just straight ports. They're getting actual net code. His tweet goes on to say, I just put it up over here, netcode updates and maybe having some licensed aspects tweaked. He finishes it off by saying, at Capcom for Xbox, I mean, so it's a combo of do they think it's worth it, etc. Microsoft should pay for it, in my opinion. And you see, this is where there are two sides to this coin, Fuzzy and chat. One of which is additional smoke from Microsoft, because I'm sorry to say you're aware of what's coming, what's not releasing on your platform. People like myself, maybe we don't have the biggest voices, but we're customers, we're consumers, we do matter, and our opinions matter. And when I see them not commenting on this stuff, not making, hey, we hear you, like Aaron, he's always on the socials. Bill, always on the socials. Sarah, always on the socials. We didn't hear anything. We saw a lot of people out here, like legitimately complaining about this being just a really this shit sandwich, folks. I'm sorry. That's what it was. And I think that, I hate using the term lazy dev, but I'm going to say lazy publisher, because these are games that some of which were exclusive at one time on Xbox. Now they're exclusively not on Xbox, and that sucks. But I am going to say where I give them flowers now is the fact that there is a conversation happening where they could potentially fix this. Now, whether that means actual dollars that they have to invest, I don't care. You are a $3 trillion company. Xbox makes a ton of money for you. You could spend the ducats to help Capcom bring these games. Use the great team that you have for backwards compatibility to your advantage. We know that Sarah Bond specifically said they're working for the future of the platform for both backwards and forwards compatibility. Let's see that. Let's see that played out in real life.
Mhm.
Let's get your hot take on this, Fuzzy.
Well, for me, I'm a big fighting game fan. But most of my collection was on PS3 as far as some of the earlier stuff. Um, Coming to Xbox, I mean, obviously we had Killer Instinct and things along those lines, but all the Street Fighters except for Street Fighter Five were on Xbox, and I was happy with that arrangement for the most part, except for the Street Fighter Five, which yeah, eventually I did buy it on PlayStation, but begrudgingly. But it was just one of those things where I don't well, I understood the Street Fighter Five deal. PlayStation kicked some funds and helped with the the production of that out of their wallets, kind of thing. And I really wish at some point Microsoft would consider doing the same. Now they did to some extent with the Dead Rising series and such, but when it comes to fighting games, that's kind of like one of the core pillars of arcade and video games in general. So for to not be able to partake in these older titles seems a little silly to me, but like I always hope that maybe just maybe there was some hope that they would work with Capcom in making a future version or current generation version of these games. Like I would love to see pretty much a mixture of King of Fighters 15 with like Street Fighter 6 characters, going toe to toe. Like if
Yeah,
Microsoft was more into doing stuff like that, then these misses wouldn't bother me as much. But they don't even seem to be interested in that. And I get it. Maybe fighters don't sell as well on the platform. Um, but I almost feel like it's one of those numbers things where bad data leads to bad decisions. Like they
yes,
always talked about, like the DVR, hardly anybody uses it. Well, why do people not use it? Well, it's because it's crappy at this point when you compare it to your nearest competitor's setup for the DVR. So you're not going to get more people to use a crappy system until you fix it, but you're not going to fix it until more people use it. So it's like the end all be all. You're going to keep on running around in that circle. People aren't going to buy fighters if you're not going to go all in on fighters. It you have to sometimes take those risks. And if they feel that they've taken those risks earlier on and it didn't pan out, then I can kind of understand it. But fighters right now are going through its renaissance to some extent. Like we saw a lot of fighters between pretty much last year and this year, or within the past 2 years, between Mortal Kombat 1, between Street Fighter 6, with King of Fighters 15, and then a lot of these remasters and things. I would think it would be in their best interest to at least be able to participate, even if okay, you can't get it on console. Why isn't it on your Windows store? That should be like, there should be no excuse for that. Like if you're about gaming and you're about preservation, at least still put the code as far as, yes, a lot of the stuff somewhat overlaps, but there are games on the PC store that don't overlap with console at the slightest, and I don't know why it's not at least there. So once again, it just seems like they're not making some of the best decisions, whether it's because of previous data that wasn't complete or previous data that didn't pan out when fighters weren't as popular as they are at the moment. But in the grand scheme of things, it's good to hear that they are working with them. I wish that they would do more of that. Every time we hear of either misses on Xbox or maybe a port doesn't quite play as well on Xbox, a lot of times we find out later, oh, well, Sony sent like a team of devs over there to help them
yes.
get the game across the line. And I'm not saying you have to always do what PlayStation does, but you guys should be, being the software giant that you are, be able to afford to do that on occasion. And maybe that would be the helping commitment for some of those other publishers or studios that you don't have the greatest working relationship with, although Capcom, they do have an outstanding one. I would think that would only make it stronger and make it easier moving forward, especially if you're meeting them halfway or working with them for what they would need out of future hardware. Like we're talking about next gen consoles coming out in 2026, and you want to make sure everything is backwards compatible and forwards compatible. Start working with these devs now on how this will all play out when it gets to the next console, and so we don't have another one of these mid situations where the PlayStation 6 can play this game, but somehow the next Xbox can, or something ridiculous like that. But it's good that they're taking the steps. Glad to hear that they're in at least talks or at least working with them. But I really wish that that was more of a norm and not like, oh, well, we got skipped and the community seems upset. Let's now start doing stuff. They should be somewhat a little bit more proactive, or at least that's how I see it. They should be a little bit more proactive because I gotta say, Street Fighter 6, Mortal Kombat 1, King of Fighters 15, and a bunch of other like not Blaze Blue, but like what's the other one? I forget.
Guilty Gear.
Yeah, Guilty Gear. It's like all of those have been going through like this renaissance at this point. You might as well, jump on board. And I've heard rumors as of 2 years ago that there was supposed to be another Virtual Fighter. Are we going to have a similar situation when it comes to Sega because we didn't, kind of count on or take, preventative measures to make sure that that's not skipped, or that, the port isn't, in its best condition or best optimization? They need to be on top of these things, at least with a pillar of gaming. And I consider fighting one of those pillars. Some people would say racing games are that too. I tend to believe that. I know there are others that don't, but yeah, I would say fighters are probably next to like platformers in the hierarchy of games that they should focus on, and not let things like this happen as far as being missed or skipped because of older tech versus newer dev kits and whatnot. So we'll see what comes of it.
Yeah, I mean, only time is going to tell. Look, I'll put it this way. I think this is promising. Jez Corden isn't a BS artist. I don't think he would have reported this. And again, he didn't officially report it. He talked about it on the Xbox 2 podcast, which they normally do. This is a conversation that he was having. And I think it's an important conversation to have. Again, I see some people in the chat that are like, yeah, it's not that big of a deal. I hear you. If a 20-year-old fighting game is not your bag, I'm not going to fight you. Like literally, I'm not going to fight you, whether it be on the screen or in real life. Have an opinion, and you're absolutely entitled and justified to have it. But I will humbly disagree. I think it's incredibly important because you have a game that is coming back in a big way. It is a fan favorite. It is a cult classic, if you will, and it is available everywhere but the platform that I enjoy the most. And I do feel left out. Like I said, I'm buying it on the Switch. It's not like I'm not going to be able to play it, but I would much rather play it on my Xbox Series X. And I think the fact that there is talks tells me immediately that yes, Xbox is listening. I don't think you would have gotten the same response or even a potential update to the story if it would have been a Nintendo problem or a PlayStation problem. I think that this is clear that they hear the community. And I'm not talking about people just yelling at the sun because they want to complain. I'm talking about actual fans like myself, like Fuzzy, like some people in this chat right now that play these games, whether it be on your Sega Saturn, whether it be on your Sega Dreamcast, whether it be on an older platform, because a lot of the stuff came to OG Xbox, it came to PlayStation. These are legacy titles. And like Jez Corden said in his rebuttal, that it's not just a simple cut and paste port. They're doing things to it to make it look and run better. Why wouldn't you want to play that? Now, okay, and real quick, let me do a little bit of a pushback to people like, yeah, these aren't important. Look, here's the thing. By that mindset alone, the fighting genre shouldn't even exist. Street Fighter 7 shouldn't happen. Mortal Kombat, whatever, shouldn't happen. We shouldn't get a new Killer Instinct or Guilty Gear or a Fatal Fury or a King of Fighters or even a new Tekken. F it. You know why? Because I could tell you this right now. Less than 10% of gamers actually play these games. But yet they just spent an entire weekend on EVO where it was the biggest thing happening outside of what happened in Hall H with the MCU. Like, again, that logic, why even bother catering to the fighting community at all? Let's just stop making fighting games altogether. That's ridiculous. It's a small market. If you I mean, like I said, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but if you look at what Street Fighter 6 sold versus how many platforms it was available, super low numbers. The same thing with Mortal Kombat, the same thing with Tekken, the same thing with the new King of Fighters. They don't sell well because fighting games are a niche market, but it is big business. And I think that there are enough players, specifically on Xbox, to justify Capcom, asking for help. And that, again, who's to blame here, Fuzzy? I don't know. Is it Capcom? Is it Xbox? Is it both? Is it no one? Because obviously, like I said, where I give Xbox the smoke is they knew that this was going to skip the box and they didn't do anything about it. Now, again, that's me just speculating. They could have been a conversation and Capcom just threw their hands up in the air. But like Fuzzy said, they do have a really, really good business relationship with Capcom. So that does not make any sense.